The year was 1999. War raged in Kosovo. NATO forces filled the skies, their mission to stop the violence, to bring peace. But peace was a distant dream. The nights were filled with tension, the air throbbed with the sound of jets. On the ground, people huddled. They feared the bombs, they prayed for an end to the conflict. This was Operation Allied Force, a campaign of air power against a determined Serbian defense. It was a bitter struggle. The United States Air Force flew its best. Among them, a legend, the F-117 Nighthawk, designed to be invisible, a silent hunter. It slipped past enemy radar. It delivered its payload, or so everyone believed. But on March 27th, something shifted. Lieutenant Colonel Darrell Zelko was the pilot, an experienced aviator. He knew his aircraft. He trusted its technology. His call sign for the mission was Vega 31. He climbed into the cockpit that fateful night, prepared for another sortie over hostile territory. The stakes were always high, but the Nighthawk was his shield, his cloak of invisibility. His aircraft was the F-117 Nighthawk, a machine unlike any other. It looked alien. The unique shape deflected radar waves. It was coated in special radar-absorbent material. The engines were hidden, their heat signatures masked. It was built to be a ghost. The Nighthawk's purpose was clear: penetrate deep into enemy airspace, strike high-value targets, and do it all without being seen. On the other side, there was another Lieutenant Colonel, Zoltan Dani. He commanded the 3rd Battalion of the 250th Air Defense Missile Brigade of the Yugoslav Army. His men were determined. They were defending their homeland against a technologically superior foe. They faced long odds, but their spirit was strong, their resolve unbroken. They were the wolf pack, waiting, watching, hunting. Dani was not just a soldier, he was a thinker, an innovator. He knew his equipment was old. Soviet-era S-125 Neva Pechora missile systems, known to NATO as SA-3 Goa. These were not the latest tech, but Dani studied his enemy. He believed that even stealth aircraft had vulnerabilities. No technology was perfect. Stealth technology is not true invisibility. It's a sophisticated illusion, a masterful trick of science and engineering. It just makes detection very, very difficult, almost like finding a needle in a haystack. The F-117 was designed to be least visible to high-frequency radar, the kind used for targeting. It was a marvel of modern warfare. But older, long-wavelength radars could sometimes get a faint return, a whisper of its presence. Dani suspected this. And he was right. He also knew NATO missions could become predictable, flight paths repeated, timings became familiar, patterns could be exploited by a keen observer. The Nighthawk had specific vulnerabilities, weak points that could be targeted. One critical moment was when it opened its bomb bay doors to release its weapons. This was a crucial time. For those few seconds, its radar cross-section increased significantly. It became slightly more visible if a radar was looking at the right place, at the right time, with the right frequency. Timing was everything. It was a tiny window of opportunity, a fleeting chance that could make all the difference. But for a prepared hunter, a tiny chance was all they needed. Dani's unit had adapted to this reality. They kept their radars off most of the time to avoid detection and destruction, a strategy born of necessity. They only turned them on for very short periods, just long enough to catch that fleeting glimpse. Lieutenant Colonel Zelko had delivered his bombs. The mission objective was complete. He turned his Nighthawk, pointed its nose towards base, towards safety. He was still deep in hostile airspace, but his aircraft's stealth was his confidence. He believed he was unseen, untouchable. The journey home had begun. He expected it to be uneventful. He was wrong, terribly wrong. The night still held a nasty surprise, a deadly one. Suddenly the cockpit lit up. Alarms blared, a missile launch warning. Zelko was stunned. How? How could they see him? His training kicked in, evasive maneuvers, sharp turns, trying to break the lock. But it was too late. The missiles were already airborne, streaking towards him through the dark Serbian sky. Two of them like fiery serpents closing in fast. There was nowhere to hide. With a powerful roar, the ejection seat fired, propelling the pilot into the night sky. Zelko was blasted out of the crippled Nighthawk into the cold, dark night, the stars barely visible through the haze. The wind tore at him, howling in his ears. Then his parachute deployed with a sudden jerk, slowing his descent. He was descending, floating down towards the Serbian countryside, towards enemy territory, his heart pounding in his chest. The burning wreckage of his multi-million-dollar stealth fighter fell somewhere else, lighting up the night sky. He was alone, vulnerable, a pilot down behind enemy lines with no immediate help in sight. This was every flyer's nightmare, a scenario they trained for but hoped would never happen. He hit the ground hard in a field, the impact knocking the wind out of him. Quickly, he gathered his parachute, tried to hide it, knowing it could give away his position. He needed to avoid capture at all costs, moving stealthily through the dark field. He activated his survival radio, sent out a distress signal, hoping for a quick response. He knew his best chance was a combat search and rescue mission, but that would take time to organize. Time he wasn't sure he had. And the Serbs would be looking for him. Scouring the area with flashlights and search teams, he was an enemy pilot on their soil, near where their prize, the Nighthawk, had crashed. He had to move. He had to hide, blending into the dark terrain. The Serbian military knew an American pilot had ejected, and they were determined to find him. The wreckage of the F-117 was a massive propaganda coup, a symbol of their success. Capturing the pilot would be even bigger. Search parties were organized, dogs were brought in, the hunt began and the clock was ticking. The call for help was heard loud and clear, echoing through the channels. NATO swiftly launched a combat search and rescue operation, mobilizing their best teams. AH-60G Pave Hawk helicopters, escorted by A-10 Warthogs, took to the skies. They flew deep into Serbia, navigating the perilous landscape on a risky mission. But they were determined they would not leave a man behind, no matter the cost. They homed in on Zelko's beacon under the cover of darkness, dodging potential threats. Finally, they located him. Exhausted but safe, he was found. He was pulled aboard the helicopter and flown out of Serbia. It was a daring and successful rescue. The downing of the F-117 was a major event, shaking the military community. For Serbia, it was a moment of immense pride and national celebration. Proof that they could fight back against a technologically superior force. Zoltan Dani became a national hero. His ingenuity and leadership celebrated widely. For NATO, it was a shock, a sobering reminder that no technology is infallible. The loss prompted extensive reviews and adjustments to tactics and strategies. The wreckage of the Nighthawk, known as Something Wicked, was put on display in Belgrade, a trophy of war. The war eventually ended and years passed, but the story of Vega 31 did not fade away. In a remarkable turn of events, Darrell Zelko and Zoltan Dani connected, bridging a gap once thought insurmountable. The pilot who was shot down and the commander who gave the order. They started corresponding, sharing their stories and experiences.